While historians focus on ancient Greece and the Roman Empire, much of the Balkan Peninsula remains mysterious and little studied, as if hidden by time. We know about the Thracians, Dacians, Scythians, and other peoples of southeastern Europe mainly from Greek and Roman chronicles, where truth is often mixed with bias and myths. But among these forgotten civilizations, the Illyrians hold a special place, fierce and proud tribes whose names struck fear into the ancient world. Their lands stretched across what is now Albania, Croatia, and Montenegro, and the first mentions of them appear in sources as early as the 6th century before Christ. But despite centuries of contact with the Greeks and Romans, the Illyrians have remained a mystery to us. Who were they really? How did they manage to resist the great powers of antiquity? And what hidden role did they play in the history of the ancient world? Today, we will try to figure out this fascinating question. You are on the Amazing History channel. And before we begin, a small request. Please support this channel through sponsorship on YouTube or Patreon, and also like, subscribe, and leave your comments. Your support helps us create new and interesting episodes. Well then, let's get started. Before diving into the world of Illyrian history and culture, it's worth figuring out who exactly we call the Illyrians. This name is not their own, but an external designation given by the ancient Greeks, similar to how ancient authors called dozens of different tribes Germans or Celts. The term Illyrians became a collective label for many peoples of the Western Balkans, except perhaps for the coastal Ligurians. The origin of the word Illyrians itself is shrouded in mystery. Some researchers think that initially only a few southern tribes near Lake Ohrid used this name, and later the Greeks applied it to the whole region. This raises a key question. Did a unified Illyrian civilization actually exist, or are we dealing with a conventional label that concealed dozens of different cultures and languages? Although the first written mentions of the Illyrians appear only in the 6th century before Christ, their contacts with the Greeks began much earlier. It is possible that the term existed in oral tradition long before it appeared on the pages of ancient chronicles. Interestingly, by the 7th century AD, the name Illyria survived only as a Byzantine administrative term. But where did the Illyrians themselves go? Did they assimilate with other peoples? Or did they simply disappear into history? In this study, we will focus on the golden age of Illyria, the era of its confrontation with the Hellenistic states and Rome. But to understand its true scale, we will have to look at both the earlier and later periods of its history. After all, it is at the junction of eras that we can best see who these mysterious Balkan warriors really were. The origin of the Illyrians remains a subject of debate among historians and archaeologists. It is still unknown whether they were direct descendants of the ancient Neolithic and Bronze Age cultures of the Western Balkans, or if they appeared in this region as a result of migrations, mixing with the local population. According to Greek mythology, the founder of the Illyrian people was Illyri, a semi-divine hero whose origin varies in different versions of the myth. According to one version, he was the son of the Cyclops Polyphemus and the Nereid Galatea. Another version claims that Illyri was the son of the Phoenician prince Cadmos and Harmonia, the daughter of Aures and Aphrodite. This mythical lineage emphasizes the antiquity and mystery of the people, as well as their connection to other great civilizations of the ancient world. The first historical mentions of the Illyrians are found in the works of Hekataios of Miletos, who described coastal cities of the Adriatic Sea, such as Uidantion, as belonging to Illyria. Long before the appearance of written records, the Illyrians were already actively interacting with the surrounding world. In the 9th century before Christ, when the Greeks began actively colonizing the Mediterranean, the Illyrians became important trading partners of the Hellenes. They supplied metals, agricultural products, and slaves, and in return received ceramics, olive oil, and luxury goods. The influence of the Greeks, Apogee, and Macedonians gradually affected the culture of the Illyrians, especially the coastal tribes who had constant contact with the Hellenic world. However, overall, the Illyrians remained fragmented tribal unions for a long time, leading a predominantly warlike way of life. Over time, however, more centralized political structures began to form. One of the first known unions was the Confederation of the Ancillae, who inhabited the lands around Lake Archid. They intervened in neighboring politics and even invaded Macedonia. Legend says in the 6th century before Christ, the Ancillae reached the very oracle of Delphi and raided the sanctuary of Apollo, a daring attack that provoked a response from the Greeks. Another early Illyrian state formation was the Kingdom of the Taulanti, located on the Adriatic coast in the area of modern Albania. The first known ruler of this region was Galaur, who launched a campaign against Macedonia but was stopped by Macedonia's Adriatus, the Taulanti king. The Illyrian-Macedonian War lasted centuries, ending with Philip II Alexander the Great's father. The Taulanti, thanks to their advantageous location, they maintained close ties with Greek colonies such as Epidamnos. These contacts contributed to the development of crafts and trade. In particular, the Illyrians adopted certain elements of architecture, visual arts, and religious cults from the Greeks. The mutual exchange of goods and ideas made Illyria an integral part of the economic and cultural map of the ancient Mediterranean. By the classical period, the Illyrians were becoming more involved in Greek political life. Their warlike nature, seafaring, and control of key Balkan areas made them key players in international conflicts as early as the 7th century before Christ. The southern Illyrian tribes established closer ties with the Greeks. During this period, Corinth supported them militarily in their struggle against the Dalmatian tribe of the Liberians. This alliance strengthened Greco-Illyrian relations, and later some Illyrians participated in major Greek military conflicts. For example, during the Peloponnesian War, they sided with Sparta. The Athenian historian Thucydid mentions that in 423 before Christ, the Spartan commander Brassid formed an alliance with one of the Illyrian tribes, inspiring them to go to war by entering Macedonia. This campaign failed. During this same period, several powerful political entities emerged in Illyria, among which the Kingdom of the Dardanians stood out, located in the territory of present-day North Macedonia and Kosovo. The Dardanians became famous not only for their military campaigns, but also for their economic development. They actively traded in metals, weapons, and agriculture. The Dardanians were among the few Illyrian peoples to capture Macedonia during King Amyntas III's reign. Exploiting Macedonia's weakness, they overthrew him and installed a puppet ruler, but their success was short-lived. With the rise to power of Philip II, the Dardanians were pushed back. In the classical era, Illyria was fragmented into many kingdoms and tribal alliances. Among them stood out the Partheni, the already mentioned Taulanti and Dardanians, as well as the Dasaretai, who controlled the southern and central areas of the region. King Bardailis deserves special mention as one of the most powerful Illyrian rulers of the classical era. For decades, he raided Macedonia and Epirus, subjugating new territories. In the 6th century before Christ, he captured Molossia, but Sparta soon intervened, sending troops led by King Agesilaus to aid the Epirotes. The situation changed significantly when Philip II of Macedon rose to power. Aiming to eliminate the northern threat, he launched a major campaign against the Illyrians. The Macedonians won a decisive battle in the Eragon River Valley. Having crushed the Illyrian resistance to strengthen the alliance, Philip married Audata, a representative of the Illyrian nobility. Their daughter, Canana, later became famous as one of the few female warriors of her time, and as the half-sister of Alexander the Great. After the assassination of Philip II, the Illyrians tried to take advantage of the instability in Macedonia. In 335 before Christ, the kings Glavki and Klit rebelled against the young Alexander the Great. However, during the siege of the city of Pelion, Alexander dealt them a crushing defeat, securing the safety of the northern borders of his kingdom. The death of Alexander Macedonsky in 323 before Christ plunged the Balkans into chaos as the wars of the Diadochi began. Amid turmoil, the Illyrians again challenged fate to defend their freedom. King Glavki, who survived Pelion's defeat, showed strong diplomatic skills. He formed an alliance with the Greek cities, including Epidamnus, and challenged Cassander, the new ruler of Macedonia, although in 314 before Christ, Cassander took Tolanti lands and major ports. Just 2 years later, Glavki regained what was lost, but his main bet for the future was the young Pier, the exiled heir to the Epirot kingdom. By protecting him, Glavki raised a future great commander and restored him to the throne in 307 before Christ. By laying the foundation for future Epirot Illyrian alliances, the weakening of Macedonia allowed the Illyrians to strengthen their independence, but a new danger came from the north. A wave of Celtic invasions shook the Balkans. In response, some Illyrian tribes began to unite, creating powerful states. The kingdom of the Ardii reached its greatest power under King Agron. The Illyrians became a formidable naval force. According to Roman historians, their fleet struck terror across the Adriatic. Pirate raids against Greek and Italian ships became commonplace, and Illyrian piracy did not go unnoticed. Rome demanded an end to the attacks to protect its trade routes, but when the Illyrian queen Tuta, the wife of Argon, allowed the murder of Roman envoys, Rome's patience came to an end. The First Illyrian War ended with Tuta's defeat. She was forced to sign a humiliating peace, but the struggle did not stop. Her successor Demetrius continued the resistance, but the Second Illyrian War only hastened the collapse. The last attempt to save Illyria was the adventure of King Gentius. He allied with Macedonia and the Dardanians to defeat Rome, but after Macedonia's defeat, Roman legions invaded Illyria. Gentius was captured, and his kingdom erased. After defeating the Illyrians, Rome secured its place on the Adriatic coast. But in the interior regions, resistance from individual tribes continued until the end of the 2nd century before Christ. In 58 before Christ, Gaius Julius Caesar, as proconsul of Cisalpine Gaul, planned to invade Illyria to halt local tribal raids. He demanded hostages and troops for his armies from them. The civil war between Caesar and Pompey also affected Illyria. In particular, the siege of Aricum took place on the territory of modern Albania. Later, Octavian Augustus launched a large-scale invasion into the interior regions of Illyria, subdued the local tribes, and incorporated the region into the Roman Empire under the name Province of Illyricum. From this moment, the last independent Illyrians vanished. During the Roman Empire, Illyria became a place where veterans of the Roman legions were resettled. Because of its proximity to the Danube and the Germanic tribes, the northern regions of Illyria were heavily fortified. Later, Emperor Vespasian reformed the region, dividing it into the provinces of Pannonia and Dalmatia, which were closely connected with the neighboring Noricum. Illyria had strategic significance due to its mineral resources and convenient ports in Dalmatia. Settlements of Roman veterans contributed to the Latinization of the region, and some researchers believe that the Romance-speaking peoples of medieval Dalmatia descended from Roman colonists. Although this issue remains a subject of debate, over the centuries of Roman rule, Illyria became one of the most urbanized regions of the empire. Many Roman emperors came from its northern lands, including Diocletian, whose residence still. The so-called Illyrian emperors are evidence that Illyria was fully integrated into the Roman military, economic, and political system, at least for the privileged strata of the population. Next, let's talk about the culture and religious practices of the Illyrians. We don't have many written sources, but archaeology provides important information. Some ancient Greco-Roman authors left curious descriptions of the Illyrians, although some of them may be exaggerated. For example, Herodotus mentioned that the Illyrians had open markets where daughters were sold as wives, but such claims are questionable. It is known that the Illyrians were skilled craftsmen in working with iron and ceramics. Ceramic fragments found by archaeologists show that the Illyrians adopted decorative elements from their neighbors, especially from the Greeks. The famous Illyrian helmets, which had various variations, were popular in the region. Very little is known about the Illyrian language. It is unclear whether any of its descendants have survived, how many dialects it had, or how widespread it was. The religious beliefs of the Illyrians also remain a mystery. Archaeological evidence suggests that they worshipped the forces of nature, and their art indicates reverence for the sun and snakes. Horse burials were common in Illyria, which was probably connected to sacrificial rituals. It is known that the Illyrians had a polytheistic pantheon that varied by region. Some ancient authors mentioned a possible Illyrian god of war named Medor, who was worshipped in the cities of Resinium and Andin among the Dardanians. Illyrian religion became heavily Romanized during the Roman period. For example, the cult of Silvanus, the Roman equivalent of the Greek Pan, became widespread in the region. The goddess Athena Domus was popular in Apollonia, and shrines of Mithras, the Roman military cult, spread throughout Illyria. Before the arrival of Christianity, with the spread of Christianity to the Balkans in the 1st century AD, Illyria found itself at the center of cultural and religious transformations. By this time, the region already represented a unique blend, an Illyro-Roman civilization, where local traditions were organically intertwined with Roman influences. In the 3rd and 4th centuries, Illyria's landscape began to change. Throughout the region, especially in the territory of modern Kosovo, powerful late antique-type fortifications sprang up. During this same period, the Balkans faced the onslaught of the Goths. However, despite the waves of migration, the Romanized population maintained its position. The Illyrian nobility continued to play a key role in the Eastern Roman Empire, a vivid example of which is the imperial dynasty of Theodosius, whose roots went back to the Illyrian lands. Illyria's linguistic and cultural map during this period is still debated by scholars. The population was partially Latinized, but at the same time actively mixed with new peoples. In the 4th century, the region received a special status as Illyricum and was transformed into a separate prefecture of the Eastern Roman Empire. Emperor Justin the Fistus, the predecessor of Justinian the Great, was born in Illyria and possibly had Illyro-Frankish origins. Perhaps the reputation of the Illyrians as strong warriors helped Justin join the imperial guard and use it to reach the throne. Over time, the early Slavs began to settle in the Balkans, especially in the territories of the former Yugoslavia. They lived alongside the descendants of the ancient Illyrians, Celts, Thracians, and Goths. By the year 630, organized Slavic tribes had put an end to Byzantine rule in the region. The last mentions of the name Illyria are found in the Byzantine source Miracles of Saint Demetrius of Thessaloniki. After that, the name disappears from administrative documents, and the Illyrians themselves merge into new ethnic groups. After the 7th century AD, the name Illyria disappears from historical chronicles. But the region itself continues to remain a crossroads between the Greek, Latin, and European worlds, as evidenced by its rich cultural heritage. The Illyrians deserve to be not just a footnote in the history of the ancient world, but a separate chapter, as vivid as the history of the ancient world and Greece. Well, that's all from me. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.